I'd like to acknowledge that this episode of the Teach New South Wales podcast was recorded on the homelands of the Darug people. I'd like to pay respect to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples listening today. Welcome to the Teach New South Wales podcast, a podcast by teachers for teachers.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Teach New South Wales podcast. We are back, your hosts joining you today, myself Shannon and
Siobhan.
We have a very exciting episode today, another head-to-head episode. So Siobhan, I hope you're ready.
Just the two of us.
Ready to rumble.
Just the two of us.
Today we are reflecting on our experiences as pre-service teachers, and we've compiled a bit of a list of things that we wish we knew. This episode allows you to feel like you are getting some, big sister advice and that we're guiding you through your university journey and setting you up for success in your teaching career. So let's get into it.
Amazing. One of the very first things that I hear from pre-service teachers currently, and it's something that I probably wasn't aware of myself and something we kind of take for granted in the education world, this whole meta language and almost like who's who in the zoo, I suppose. So the first question we always get asked, and I'd love to sort of stamp this out today. What's the difference between NSW and the New South Wales Department of Education? Typically, our pre-service teachers think they're one in the same, and although there are some commonalities and definitely some intersections, I think it's really important today that we define the key differences between the two. So NSW is the New South Wales Education Standards Authority, and they're essentially the accrediting body for teachers, and they look after a whole scope of things, but importantly to us is, their ability to accredit teachers, look at their qualifications and assess them against the standards, as well as accrediting the university degrees, so maintaining the quality and integrity of the institutions that deliver those teacher education degrees. So a lot of the time when you're going through your pre-service teaching degree, the most common time that you'll interact with NSW is when you're applying for your accreditation. So if you're still studying and you're sort of in that final year of your degree, you'd be seeking conditional or provisional accreditation with NSW. Yeah. And once you've graduated and have got a couple of, years of experience under your belt, you'd be shifting and moving to completing your proficient teacher accreditation. And you can also complete higher levels as you go throughout your career. So highly accomplished and lead accreditation. Now, what's the difference then between NSW and the department? NSW is this accrediting body, but what does the department do?
So the department is the employer. So essentially, once you've got your accreditation with NSW, you can come on over to the department and you can go through what's called the graduate recruitment program if you're coming straight out of university. So as Siobhan mentioned, if you are doing an undergraduate degree, so you're doing a Bachelor of Education, you might want to look at applying for your conditional accreditation when you are in your final year of your degree. If you're doing a Masters of Teaching, you can look at applying for that conditional accreditation in your first 50% of once you've completed 50% of your degree. So if you come over to the department and you look towards applying for your approval to teach, then that means that you will get your interim approval to teach, which is your teaching number, I guess we say in the industry, in the profession. And that means that you can start coming out and casual teaching in our classrooms. So you might be thinking, how do I find casual teaching opportunities? Well, the New South Wales Department of Education uses an app called ClassCover. And what that looks like is you can log on to the website and you can fill out your profile. And once that's complete and you have all your mandatory training updated and you have everything that you need to fill in relation to your profile, you can then download the app and you can start adding schools to your ClassCover profile. What you can also do is with your resume, if you go around to your local public schools, you can hand out your resume and let them know that you're actually on ClassCover so that they can find you on there and add you. You can put in your availabilities, and that way schools can send you booking requests so that if you're available on that day, you can accept and you can kick off your teaching career and start teaching in our schools, when you're ready.
Exactly. And not only does the New South Wales Department of Education offer those paid employment opportunities, which we know you're all interested in, but they also have pre-employment opportunities. And that looks like our scholarship offerings as well. So if you're at, the first few stages of your degree or even a future teacher, so jumping in from high school into a university degree, studying teaching, you can apply for a future teacher scholarship. And the department pays and provides financial assistance towards the cost of your studies, as well as providing you with a permanent permanent appointment when you graduate. So it's nice to know that before you've even sort of finished your studies, you have a permanent position waiting for you, ready to start on day one in a New South Wales public school. So the department offers that full suite of support from pre-employment opportunities such as scholarships, programs to get you out and about into the world of New South Wales public schools. We're talking things like Beyond the Line, for example, paid rural professional experience placements as well. And then into your employment opportunities, working as a casual or temporary teacher whilst you're still studying, and then moving into permanent employment if that's the goal that you're looking to obtain as well. So I think we've kind of stamped that one out now. I think I'm pretty clear on the difference between NSW and the Department of Education. But if anybody has any questions, they can always reach out to our team via email. It's just teachnewsouthwales@det.nsw.edu.au, and we can point you in the right direction of what you need.
And another thing, noting onto what you just mentioned, I think when I think back to myself as a pre-service teacher, I was often always, looking, but I wasn't necessarily looking in the right places. So I feel like the best place to go is Teach New South Wales, which is on the New South Wales Department of Education webpage. And under the Get Paid to Study section of the website, you can actually see all of those, pre-service teacher opportunities that are there ready for you to take a hold of and jump in.
Exactly right. We also have a really handy step-by-step guide as well. So we've got on our landing page, there's one for high school students, one for career changers, one for university students. It literally steps through step by step exactly what you need to do. So there's a handy guide there to support you, and we'll link it in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Which is exciting. Now, another really exciting thing about being a pre-service teacher, and arguably it was the best part of the degree for me personally, was completing your professional experience placements. And this is where you're getting into the mix of things. You're honing your craft on the ground. You're there, a fresh set of eyes, a fresh new face, ready to learn, potentially make mistakes because that's super normal.
Absolutely.
And just, really get into the mix of the classroom and look at the curriculum, look at supporting students and looking at getting in amongst the school community as a whole. So placements is kind of where we're going to really hone in on this episode.
Yes.
And so the first question that we always get asked is, what should I actually do in the lead up to my placement? Because, you potentially find out your school, you might find out the name of your supervising teacher, get some contact details, but where to from there? It's a really exciting but nerve-wracking time. So
and there's lots you can do because you may, in the first instance, you may get your match. So lots of universities do.
They do.
Find your perfect match. Find your New South Wales Public School perfect match.
Yes.
You may be assigned your school, but you might not have that supervising teacher yet. So there are a couple of things you can do before you have that information. My advice would be look at the school website. Schools do a wonderful job because in our schools, we communicate with parents, we communicate with students, we communicate with community members. So the best place to go about a school is to go and look at their school website first and foremost. There you'll be able to find what's called the annual report or the school plan, School Excellence Framework. It's now called SEF. We love an acronym over here in the education world. That will tell you lots of information about the context of the school, what the vision of the school is, what their plan is for the next 3 to 4 years, the strategic direction of the school. And that will help you sort of get a better understanding of what you're walking into, what the type of environment are, what they're really strong at, what they're looking to improve on as well. So that's a really great place to start.
Even something as simple as the staff list.
Absolutely.
A lot of schools typically publish, at least who their executive staff members are. So even, me, I'm an English teacher. I know I'm going on an English placement. I want to know the name of the head teacher of English. And kind of, when I get there, put a name to a face. I think that's also really important. I'm also a really big fan of tapping into the school newsletters.
Yes.
So typically schools might publish a term newsletter or fortnightly, whatever their publication frequency is. But I love going into the school newsletter and reading about what's been going on in the school, the achievements that have been happening. Potentially they have a list of events that are coming up.
Celebrations, absolutely.
Might be able to match that to your placement dates as well. So you might see in the newsletter, Athletics Carnival starts next term. You go, oh my gosh, I'm
Get
there.
the runners out.
I'm there in week 7. I'm going to be there for the Athletics Carnival. So it's kind of good to just familiarize yourself with the culture of the school and what's going on through reading the school newsletters, as well as some schools have social media pages as well.
Absolutely. So they might have an Instagram or a Facebook or I believe we call it X now, formerly known as Twitter. Lots of schools have social media accounts where, again, they're sharing with the community, sharing with the parents as to what's going on in the school. So it's a great idea to go on there, give it a follow, give it a like, have a look at what's been happening, because all of that information also helps you when you get into your class in building relationships with your students that you have for your placement. You're showing them that you've gone that extra mile, and hey, I know last week you had the swimming carnival, for example. How did everyone go? Did anyone make it to regionals, state, nationals, etc.? It's a way to build that connection from day one with the students. Hey, I care about you all. I've cared about what you're doing in your life. I've gone that extra mile. So it's a really good idea.
I totally agree. Another really great place to start, and something to do in the lead up to your placement, is to make contact with your supervisor.
Yes.
So if your university has said that that's what they would like you to do, my recommendation is making contact with them via email and leaving your mobile number and providing the best time that they could ring you. And I would have a set of questions prepared, ready to ask your supervisor. So my top question that I wish I had asked, and I, was so fortunate that my supervisor was like, do you want to know this? And do you want to know this? I'm like, yes, that would be great information.
Yeah.
I think a really important question to ask is, where are the students up to with their learning? So, have they just finished an assessment task? Have they just finished a unit? When I jump in, are we sort of recapping the unit and solidifying the skills that we've just done? Am I starting from scratch?
Yeah.
What are we working with? In my context specifically, I would want to know, are we studying a specific text? Because I would be grabbing a hold of that text and reading it.
Giving it a read
and familiarizing myself with that. So you might have some advice for the primary context of what pre-service teachers can ask their supervisor.
Absolutely. And I remember, because I did a Masters of Teaching myself, I had a 5-week placement and a 6-week placement. So that didn't look like a whole term. So I was coming in a couple of weeks into the term. Yeah. So it was really great that I did pick up the phone and had a chat with my supervising teacher after we first met via email, and we were able to talk about where the students were up to with their learning. And the conversation was a lot around okay, what are the outcomes that need to be delivered on for this term or semester that we're looking to report to as well? So what are we working towards? Because then it helped me backwards map from there as to where the students were up to support them with their learning to move forward. So that was really, really beneficial to be able to sit down and look at how the students were going and where we were I was to pick up. And often with your placements, you do get that observational time where you come in and you just sort of see how the students how they move around the classroom or how they work with the teacher already, the routines that are in place. So my advice would to be, talk to your supervising teacher about what's already in place behavior management wise as well. I think it's really, really important for you to understand the whole school behavior management strategy that's in play. You may hear about positive behavior for learning, PBL schools, for example. So understanding that, but then also the classroom teacher, they may have some sort of behavior management system in their classroom as well. So it's about talking with your supervisor and, consulting on whether it's best place for you to try something new while you're in the classroom for those couple of weeks, so that you can, have that experience, I guess, and build your knowledge and capabilities with, implementing behavior management strategies, or if it's better for you to continue what the students have been doing and pick up there with the supervising teacher support as well.
Yeah, definitely. And don't come in with that fixed mindset of, I really want to implement Class Dojo in this, for example, because I need to do it as part of my assessment. That might not be what's best for the students in the class at that time. So you really need to be able to adapt to what's happening in the classroom.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's a great piece of advice.
I would say being agile is a great strength when you're coming into a classroom that's sort of already set up, and it's different for everyone on their placement experience. So you may do an internship, for example. That means that you're there for a whole entire term. So you may have more opportunity to sort of try different things with the students.
No, definitely. Now, you mentioned an acronym before. I want to throw 3 new acronyms into the mix for our pre-service teachers, because I think it'll set you up for success when you're having a conversation with your supervisor. Those are IEP, ILP, and PLP. So I'll unpack those for our listeners. IEP is an individual education plan, or otherwise known as an ILP, an individual learning plan.
Yeah.
These are essentially plans that are set up for students who require some sort of modification within the classroom, some sort of differentiation or adjustment to suit their needs. So my first question that I would ask is, do I have any students in this class and across multiple classes in high schools who have ILPs, IEPs, and what can I do to suit their needs? Because I would rather go in knowing what I need to do or what's currently happening, like we're talking about with this classroom management system, so that I'm aware. I think that's a really great question to ask, as is PLP, which is a personalized learning pathway or plan for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students who typically set goals at the start of the year and work towards those. So it could be a whole school goal, it could be a subject-specific goal. You don't know until you see and have a read of the PLP. So I think those are really important questions to ask, and I'd be quite impressed as a supervising teacher if my pre-service teacher was asking me, my pracky, as we call them, with talking about on-the-ground terms, was asking me, you know, are those available for me to have a read through? I think that's really important, and it promotes inclusion and diversity in our classroom. So it's a great question to ask.
And it's really good to get an understanding of what goes into those, putting those plans together. It's not just the classroom teacher. It's our families, it's our community members who are there with our students at home. You know, we're a part of their life at school, but we need to have that open communication with those plans for them to be successful.
Learning and support teams as well within the school. So the teacher's never developing that alone.
Yes.
And I think it's really important that you put those acronyms in your back pocket and have them ready to go, because it's certainly something that, again, I wish I had known. I don't think I would have asked that question when I was on my placement. So write that one down. That's my top advice for the day.
Agreed.
Now, something that we also get commonly asked is, how can I make a strong first impression? We hear all the time in any industry, first impressions count.
Yeah.
First impressions matter. So what are some things, Shannon, that you did yourself to make a strong first impression on your placement?
I feel like I was almost too early. I was quite nervous on my first day.
Definitely, yeah.
A funny little thing, I suppose. I was quite worried about what to wear.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think it's just because it was so different to, you know, going to university. This was a professional setting where I was going into a workplace. I wanted to make a good impression because I knew that potentially this could be an employment opportunity as well when I am finished my studies, and I would want to return to these schools. So I really had a look at the code of conduct and sort of took into consideration. I did have a little bit of an idea after talking to my supervising teacher of the activities that were happening that week. Yeah. And I tried to reduce the amount of decisions I had to make every morning so that I felt like I was most prepared, I suppose, mindfully. And that was something that it just worked for me, I suppose. It was one less decision that I had to make in the morning while I was thinking about the day I was going into with the students. So I wanted to be really focused.
Just confirming, we're scrapping the university hoodies and tights and subbing it out for something a bit more professional.
Absolutely. We were looking at professional attire, which I laid out the night before and had ready to go. So I wasn't scrambling in the morning, and I didn't have that added layer of, you know, thought that I had to go through. So absolutely planned out what I was going to wear, professional attire for the first couple of days. And then I knew that I had sport. So I had PWSA on the Friday. So I knew that I needed some sort of sporting activity outfit for the Friday as well. So I had that all ready to go.
In terms of strong first impressions as well, I think that knowing what time you need to be on site at school is really important. Be on time. Backwards map your day. Do a trial run.
Yeah.
You know, on a weekday that potentially, if you have the time, how long is it going to take me to get to the school? What's the parking situation like? Are there public transport options around the school? And planning out how you can get there on time, because first impressions count. And if I'm the supervising teacher thinking, where is my prac student? That's really important. Another thing that I would say in order to make a good, strong first impression is be helpful. So that looks like a lot of things. What it doesn't look like is spending the time on your placement engaging in non-placement related activities. So potentially outside of placement, you might be a tutor. I probably wouldn't be expecting you to be working on your tutoring notes while we're in the school. You need to make the most of the time that you are on the ground in the school, because placements don't happen as often as the rest of your university work does. So you really need to ensure that your time is best spent in the school grounds, getting to make the most of that opportunity. So,
and you're right, it is an opportunity as well to have someone who is a qualified, experienced teacher to be able to bestow this knowledge and experience on you. I feel like almost look at it like you're a little sponge and you need to absorb all of the knowledge while you're there that you can. And it's a golden opportunity because when you are qualified and you're out teaching, you don't typically have someone there with you in the classroom to support you with your growth, with your questions, with, you know, trial and tribulations, I suppose, if you're tossing up different things. So be very respectful of their time, because that's such a, you know, a wonderful opportunity for you to be able to learn from them and to grow as a professional.
And a great phrase to put into your vocabulary on placement is, how can I help? So looking for opportunities to engage in whole school life, you know. For me, and again, going back to a faculty high school based context, could it be that there's some peer or conference marking happening? Can I jump in and have a look at a few sample scripts and see how you're marking and going through that process. Is my supervising teacher going out on playground duty? How can I help? Can I come out with a high-vis vest and jump onto playground duty?
And don't forget your hat.
Playground duty with them as well. You know, I think a lot of those go-getter, that go-get mentality or attitude is really important on your placement in making a strong first impression. I would also be asking what's going on around the grounds today. Are there daily notices that you can, you know, perhaps there's public speaking and debating going on at lunchtime, or a band session, or some sort of,
much you can see.
you know, Harmony Week activity, something going on with the SRC or around the whole school that you can become a part of, because it's really important.
And speaking of the whole school, we've mentioned a lot about our supervising teacher supporting us, but a school doesn't function just with its teachers. Just with its students. It's like a big family. There are a whole host of people that are there to support you and to keep the school running. Looking outside of your faculty, or your stage or group, for example. So for me in a primary school, I'd often interact with the SAS team. So lovely office people who are in there who are always super helpful, can often answer so many questions that you may not know the answer to. The general assistant, the GA, for example, sometimes they're on school for a couple of days a week. They might be there for, you know, a couple of hours in the morning or something like that. So get to know where they're around, what they can support you with. Also, school counselors or school psychologists are often on site as well. So it's great to ask your supervising teacher, like, when they're around, go and say hello, introduce yourself, ask them a couple of questions about how they work alongside our classroom teachers, and what that looks like to support our students, because every single person within the school has a role to support our children in the classroom, our students.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like if there's one key takeaway from this, if you're taking one piece of advice from this session, and I know it's overwhelming, but just introduce yourself by name. Say, hello, my name's Siobhan. I'm here for my placement. I'm going to be here for 5 weeks, 6 weeks. This is my first ever placement, or this is my final placement. Really contextualize who you are and why you're there. You know, I study at this university. I'm this type of teacher. You know, I'm an English teacher, society and culture teacher, a primary school teacher.
Build those connections,
certainly, because it's really useful. And everything that we've kind of said so far, if it feels like you can only get one of those things done, that's still a win.
Absolutely. So, there's a huge difference between your experience on your first placement, your second placement. It's like you will grow as an individual. And Siobhan and I often talk about looking back at our professional experience reports. And you can see the growth in you as a pre-service teacher from your first placement to your final placement. So you don't have to do it all at once.
Correct.
Pick and choose what you're going to sort of focus on for each of those placements. And like you mentioned, it might look different.
Correct. So typically, and a lot of universities structure their placements with the first one is usually an observation placement. And, you know, I have that advice of be helpful. And yes, definitely. But if you're just, you know, acclimatizing yourself to the school culture, it is okay to, you know, observe, do just that. But I would spend the first few days doing that and getting yourself comfortable, and then moving on to this whole being helpful advice of what else is on, can I come to playground duty, you know, just getting to know the whole school culture. It is possible on your first placement, but take care of yourself and spend that time, you know, familiarizing yourself with the school context. It is your new professional environment, so you might not be used to it. And then I typically would have expected from myself on my final placement, my internship, that I was really getting to know the staff. I was really getting to know what my students do outside of this school context. I can start familiarizing myself with who they are and what goes on around the grounds. So exactly right. Take it slow, baby step. That's why you have a series of placements. That's why they're different lengths, and that's why you're asked to do
blocks.
Exactly. That's why you're asked to do different things on them, because it takes time. But in terms of that, I really wanted to hone in on suggestions on what to do in your very first lesson, because this is exciting. You know, it's something we always look back on. Oh, my first lesson was this, or my first lesson was that. So
to be honest, the first, and I think about like my first placement, my first lesson on each of my placements, and then I think of my first lessons as a beginning teacher. Relationships, always. We can't dive into the content, the syllabus, the outcomes until we get to know our students, our learners. We need to know a little bit about them. But not only that, they need to know a little bit about you.
100%.
You're coming into this environment where they do have a teacher who has been consistent with them for however long, whatever part of the year that we're in. they need to build that connection with you so that we can move forward with our learning. So I would do a little bit of a share back lesson. So if you can facilitate an all about me or some sort of icebreaker activity where you share a little bit about yourself, your goals for your placement, what you're hoping to do and learn from them, and yes, to have support within the classroom, but then hear from them, you know, where they're up to, what they're enjoying, how they like to learn, what their interests are, I suppose, outside of school.
For sure.
I think that's really important for that student voice as well, and it will teach you so much about your students. I love a digital piece of material, I guess. So I used to use Google Forms or Microsoft Forms, whatever you're most comfortable with, and I would do a little survey with the students where they would share information with me.
Nice.
When I had younger grades, I would do more of a written activity, and I found that it was a little bit easier for them to portray their information to me. You know, draw a picture of something you're most proud of, for example. Those taking the time to build those connections with the students and learn a little bit about them, it will stand the test and it will pay off in dividends for you.
100%.
Because you can collate that information and you can use that throughout your placement and refer to it. And it shows those students that you've taken that interest in them and that you care about them.
Yeah. If people are feeling lost on where to start, we actually have a Meet the Teacher template.
We do.
Created by Teach New South Wales. So if you're feeling like you need a little place to start with that, there's heaps of prompts in there to get you going. We can, again, have a link to it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Something that I do personally, if you were going super old school, as many pieces of paper as there are children in the room, folding them in half, asking them to decorate the front with a name tag. So writing their name and things that epitomize who they are. So, you know, I have students who are interested in anime, gaming, different types of sports teams. You really get a feel for their personality with that task and you can remember their names. Another really simple one that I loved to do, because again, with relationships, it comes with who they are as a person. So knowing their name is really critical. It's going to help you in the long run. I used to draw up the floor plan of the classroom. And when I would mark the role, or if it was my first placement observing, still I would draw up the floor plan. And when the teacher called out the name, Shannon, I would mark where Shannon was sitting on my floor plan. And so throughout the lesson, I could look back. It's really great when students are thinking and nobody wants to answer a question. It's really, really exceptional in saying, oh, I see that Nadine's sitting over there. Nadine, can you give me an answer? You know, calling upon them and they go, oh my gosh, they know who I am. Okay, like it's time to focus. This teacher cares about me and can see me in the classroom. So it really helps you to not have your students sort of fizzle out into the background while you're finding your feet as well.
Agreed. And typically you can ask your supervising teacher for a bit of a class profile as well. And often you do have the students' photos on there as well. So that will help you to, you know, match those faces to the names, particularly in the primary space where we may not have a bit of a mapped out floor plan. I know that I came from an environment that was very much flexible furniture where the students chose where they sat. So something I like to do to ensure that I was being inclusive of all my students was powder pop sticks with their nails on it. With their names on it, I should say, not their nails. And that was something that, you know, they were like, oh, I've been called,
I've been chosen.
I'm the chosen one to do X, Y, Z. And so whichever question that we were looking at the time. So that's a really nice way to build those connections with them as well.
And it's the follow-up after these activities. So I'm not doing, you know, a tokenistic one and done, here's your name tag. I'll probably be collecting the name tags and might even throw it back on myself for the next lesson. So I'll say, okay, everyone, line up at the door before you go in. I'm handing you your name tag because I'm remembering who you are. And I might see on the name tag, okay, Shannon's written her name and she's got a big Sydney Swans flag on the background. I say, there she is, the Sydney Swans fan. Story. You go, true story. There you go, the Sydney Swans fan. In you go, have a seat. Like, I think it's having fun and being vulnerable in that instance. And, you know, you've got a student, you go, I've forgotten your name today, but I'll remember in the future. And I know that you love Bluey, for example. So I think it's really playing into that. The follow-up afterwards is how you build relationships. We say
how you take that information and use it.
We say build relationships, right? But what does that actually look like? So hopefully those strategies have been quite tangible for our listeners and you can go and implement them. Go forth and implement them on your placements.
Take away our key learning.
Exactly.
Now, the next question we have today, and this is one of my favorite ones, and I feel like we touched on it a little bit at the beginning. But how can I use my placement as an opportunity for my future as a teacher? Because really and truly, it's an excellent landscape to be able to develop those relationships as a future employee of a New South Wales public school.
Definitely.
So, Siobhan, what are your top tips for that?
My top tips, and you're right, it does draw us back to the start of the episode when we were talking about the approval to teach process.
Yes.
Something that we probably didn't spell out was that there's an interview component to that.
Yeah.
The interview sort of guides you into that graduate recruitment program. So there is an interview before you enter New South Wales public schools that asks you questions about your teaching philosophy and the Australian professional standards for teachers. So the first thing that I would be doing is familiarizing myself with the standards, and you learn them at university, but have them printed out or have them digital in a digital format ready to go, and really map out, okay, in week 1, I was focusing on standard 1.1, know my students and how they learn. So I was really focusing on that standard 1, right? Now, as I go through my placement, okay, I've nailed that and I've had opportunities to demonstrate that. But now am I kind of looking for gaps?
Yes.
What are my skill gaps? What are my knowledge gaps? I think it's really important to know, and I would be mapping those against the standards. So
Absolutely.
for example, getting to know and talking to the parents in the school community, that might not be something that you're easily exposed to on your placement, and it might be an opportunity that you need to go forth and find an opportunity to do that. So is it helping your supervising teacher prepare for parent-teacher interviews? Is it supporting with marking? Is it asking, can I make a positive phone call home? Can I send a positive letter home? Can I send a merit award home? Is there some sort of system where I can give that positive feedback and connect with parents and the broader community, for example? Now, all of this is really important because when you come to your interview, you really want to be armed with examples.
Yes.
So I would be using my placement as an opportunity to get as many examples as I possibly can. So, you know, you have a really great lesson. Well, what was great about that lesson and how does it match to each of the standards? Was the lesson great because you had a really wonderful sequence of learning? Then you could go back into your interview and they might ask, how do you prepare for a literacy activity? What are you doing to cater to the needs of your diverse students in literacy, for example? And you can say, okay, I'm confident to answer this because I've mapped that out on my placement. And I know that one great lesson I had was because I had a great sort of entry task at the start that all my students could go and achieve. I gave them feedback as the lesson was going on. I had multiple modes of ways that students can show their success with the work. So they were able to write it, or they were able to perform it, or they were able to read it on a device, whatever that may be. And then we came back at the end of the lesson and we consolidated our learning. And in amongst that, I had Shannon, who was a superstar, and I gave her a little bit of time to excel at what she was doing. And I said to Shannon, you need to go and speak to this other student and do a bit of peer conferencing and help them with their work, right? That's an example. And that could have just be one lesson, but there is a wonderful way to approach an interview question when asked about, you know, catering to students, looking at literacy and numeracy, for example, supporting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students.
Absolutely.
So I think that looking for examples within your placement is super important to set yourself up professionally.
Yeah, that's great advice.
I wanted to touch on one thing finally, which is our regrets as pre-service teachers, because we can't have our time again. We've completed our placements. We can't
go back, unfortunately.
Right? And we go...
We can only support the next generation from here on out.
This is our word to you, our advice. What would I have done differently?
Yeah.
And I think for me, having an opportunity to see a school outside of metropolitan Sydney would have been so beneficial to me. And now that I've seen them and experienced them in my professional capacity as a qualified teacher, I wish I had seen, schools in rural New South Wales and the students in the community in my placement days, because I feel like it really would have been useful for me. So how can I do that? How can I fix my mistake?
Absolutely. So I think I'm very similar in the sense that my placements, I did them at my local school. So they were in my community, which I was already a little bit familiar with the context of my community because I grew up there, you know? Yeah. So I already had that understanding. One of my regrets is not going and seeing another community, another context, something different to what I was sort of raised in and around. So opportunities for pre-service teachers at the moment. Teach New South Wales runs the Beyond the Line program, which caters for students who are in their second, third and final year of their initial teacher education degree, which is a Bachelor of Education. Yeah. Or if they're doing a Master's of Teaching, they are welcome to apply and jump on in or subscribe for more information if applications are not open. So typically the Beyond the Line study tour takes you on a 5-day experience going around rural, regional, and remote locations in New South Wales. We try and do a different area each study tour. Up to 50 places are on offer for students who are attending universities all across New South Wales, which is really wonderful. So typically we depart from head office at Parramatta, and we head off with all on 2 buses, and with the support of the Teach New South Wales team, and we go and immerse ourselves in a different school each day. But on top of that, we also connect with local people in the area, so local connectors who are able to provide an experience to immerse ourselves within the community that we're in. So it's a really wonderful opportunity for you to go and step outside your comfort zone, experience new places, new lifestyles, see what's on offer at our schools, which are outside of that metropolitan area in Sydney. And if you can find a pre-service teacher at your university that has gone on one, ask them about it. Because a lot of the students that we work with, they say how it really changed their outlook.
100%.
So it's one of my huge regrets, and it gives me so much fulfillment now, being able to support pre-service teachers to go and have that opportunity. If you've done a Beyond the Line, which was a 5-day experience, and you're thinking, okay, I've got a placement coming up and I'd like to go and explore further or somewhere different.
Typically, that's what we hear from the students, right? Pre-service teachers, they say 5 days is not long enough. I want to go out into these communities for a long period of time. So how can I do my placements in one of these areas?
Absolutely. So through your university, in partnership with the Department of Education, you can go and do a rural professional experience. And that is a program that's supported by the department. For you as a university student, pre-service teacher, to go out and do your placement at one of our schools. So you get to go out with a buddy teacher, someone else as well at a school. Your school might be connected with schools in Dubbo, for example. You go out there and you do your placement. You have someone from the program team who will support you as well along the way. So not only will you have that financial support, you'll have some transport support as well. And you'll also have someone who's there willing to help if you have anything that you need throughout your placement. So that's a really good experience as well.
It's amazing. And it's almost like you don't know what you don't know, right? So if I was a pre-service teacher right now and I wasn't subscribed or following Teach New South Wales on social media channels, I would be doing so today. Because
I would say, what are you doing?
Follow us. We post announcements, days in the life, behind the scenes content, keeping you up to date with everything. And honestly, you really get to see and cherish those experiences. And I was just thinking before we were talking about Beyond the Line and the fact that it's not just students from your university, it's students from other universities across New South Wales. That's another one of my regrets. I took for granted the fact that teaching is like a family and teaching is like a community. I don't feel like I had heaps of connections in my pre-service teacher days.
I agree.
I had one buddy. Hi, Manon. Manon was my buddy at university, and we sort of stuck together throughout the whole experience. And then I came to the end and went, I actually wouldn't have anyone else to turn to other than Manon and the people that I met on my placements, right? So I feel like having that opportunity to build that pre-service teacher network is invaluable, and something that I would look to be doing outside of our programs. For example, getting involved in university life, getting involved in your education society if your university has one. I think that's really important. Going to events, the department runs annual events, careers expos, coming and speaking to like-minded people who are going into the same profession as you, I think is really important. And again, something that I didn't do myself. So these are all things I probably would have loved to have.
Do as we say, not as we do.
That's right. I would have loved to have this big sister advice. Somebody
I would have loved someone to tell me at the time.
I know. And I do hope, and this is the purpose of the episode, it's the crux. It's that, it's somebody here to lend a helping hand. You don't need to take all of our advice. All of this advice is just from our personal experience. But we wholeheartedly believe in the programs that the department offers and the support that is available to you. So if anything sparked your interest, jump on board.
I agree. Well, I think that really summarizes in its essence things we wish we knew. I suppose.
The more you know,
Pre-service teacher edition.
The more you know.
I know. That's very true. It's very true. So, Siobhan, wrap us up.
Let's wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining us today. We truly hope that this has been a tangible, useful episode with strategies that you can take forward with you as you're currently completing your studies and moving into your professional life as a teacher.
Exciting.
It's a really, really exciting period going from, hey, who who's the adult around here? Oh my gosh, it's me. Who's the teacher? I think that's a common feeling that a lot of our pre-service teachers have. So we truly hope that these tips and tricks have made you feel a bit more confident as you go and approach your placements. Let us know how you go. Flick us a DM through Instagram. We'd love to hear how your placements were going and what your experiences were. And if you'd like to hear more tips and tricks, who knows, we could be back for another episode answering your common questions. So thank you for joining us on this episode of the Teach New South Wales podcast. And until next time, we'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Teach New South Wales podcast, where we explore the dynamic world of education. Don't forget to follow, like and subscribe to be notified when new episodes become available. You can find us on social media via our handle @Teach New South Wales. Until next time, keep learning, keep teaching and keep making a difference. This podcast is produced by the Teach New South Wales team from the New South Wales Department of Education.